Hola, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable Trades podcast. I'm your host, Adrian, and I'm an HVAC business owner here in South Texas. Plenty of good conversations to be had with good people and a lot of good stories that maybe you would relate to. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcast, any other location, please leave us a review. We hope to earn those 5 stars, and I really have fun doing this podcast. I appreciate everybody that watches or listens and makes this what it is. I also want to thank our sponsors that help keep this thing going. Jobber is our favorite CRM. I've tried different ones until finding Jobber that kind of controls the chaos that it is running a business and still being in the field and trying to get all the billing, quoting, submitting everything that you need to do outside of the field. And with Jobber, we do our maintenance contracts, we do our invoicing, our quoting, following up with customers to get reviews. That has helped our business a lot. So check out Jobber for yourself, see if it helps your business. You get a 2-week free trial and a special discount if you use the link down below. Vito Pro Pack is also a supporter, and I can tell you right now, even though I see a bunch of competitors coming into the field, they are still hands down the best tool bags that you can buy. You won't want to use any other tool bag. And the thing is, they have so many products now that you can find the one that is perfect for you. So make sure to check out Vito Pro Pack at your supply house or go to vitopropack.com. True Tech Tools has a lot of their stuff as well. Go check out their website to make sure that you can find the perfect bag for yourself. You won't regret it. Diversitech is probably in a lot of y'all's vans. I have almost something from all of those brands in my van ever since we've started. Packard is a big one for us as far as parts. They usually have something that we would need on a day-to-day basis. They are your one-stop shop for everything HVAC, and they have you covered for your everyday HVAC needs. Today's episode is also brought to you by Resideo. Pro IQ Services is your edge on every customer call. It's available on Honeywell Home smart thermostats and designed to help HVAC pros turn everyday installs and customer calls into lasting business relationships. From branded visibility and remote configuration and controlled custom system alerts, it's a full-service device that helps pros streamline labor, increase customer loyalty, and generate leads. For more information, please check out resideo.com/proiq. All right, welcome to the podcast, the channel, Mike and Marilyn.
Hey, good morning, Adrian.
Thanks for making the time. I myself just got back from work. It's been a hectic year for us. It's just busy, crazy, all that kind of stuff. And it's not about me. It's about you guys. You guys are from NIBCO, and I'm happy to have you guys on the show on this episode because I had been invited out to your facility up in Stewart's Draft, and I'm like a kid in a candy store with that kind of stuff. I love seeing manufacturing and everything that goes into it because people don't realize what happens behind the scenes and what you guys kind of like their day to day on that kind of side of things. So real quick, we'll start with Mike. Can you introduce yourself, kind of what you do? And obviously you guys are from NIBCO.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Adrian, and thanks for having us on. Certainly enjoyed your visit here a couple of months ago in Stewart's Draft. I am the plant manager for the Stewart's Draft facility here in NIBCO. I've been with the company about 2.5 years, and we've got about 500 associates here that also enjoyed your visit, Adrian. And like you described, we're very passionate about what we do and what we make, and hopefully you got a little bit of taste of that through the team here. So certainly glad to join you this morning.
Great. And my name is Marilyn Morgan. I'm the Senior Product Manager for Metal Fittings at NIBCO. I've been with the company. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary at the end of November. So it's been a great opportunity. And Stewart's Draft is just an amazing facility. I've worked for several companies and had experience with several manufacturing facilities. And Stewart's Draft is truly very special and highly regarded from my perspective. So with that, that's who we are.
Awesome. Yeah. And that was one of the statistics that you guys showed was the longevity of your employees and people that work there and building a long lasting career. And that's always cool because I'm a business owner as well. And we've always been like a 3-man team. It's me and my brother and my dad. And we tried hiring, that kind of fell through. It's you learn and from trial and error, stuff like that. And we finally started opening up, to hiring and getting, some help because we've been really busy. And one of my biggest things that I was worried about is I need to have good work environment because you want people to stay long term. You don't want people in and out. So that's always a thing, work environment, that kind of stuff. And I just, the vibe that I got and just hearing how long some of you guys have been there, it really says a lot about the company.
Yeah, Adrian. One of the things we're very proud of here is we have what we call a 25-year club, and that's the associates that have been with the company for 25 years or more. And we've got, I mentioned earlier, we've got a little over 500 people, and we've got about 13% of our workforce here that has been with the company 25 years or more. And we're also really proud of one gentleman. He's working on his 63rd year with NIBCO.
Oh, I remember that one.
So if you can imagine that, he's done a phenomenal job for us and continues to do a phenomenal job for us. But wow, almost 63 years.
That's crazy. I remember seeing you going through how many years were like in 10, 20, and then that individual. That's fantastic. NIBCO itself I don't know who can take this one, who can give us a little history lesson as far as like how long they've been open and maybe a little background on NIBCO, the company.
Yeah, this is Marilyn. I can take that. NIBCO just celebrated their 121st year this past November. So last year was our 120th year, and that was a huge milestone. So NIBCO is a company that's been around for quite some time. And what's special about there's a lot of special things about NIBCO, but one of them is that it's a privately held company. It's an ESOP company, which means all the employees have a stake in the company. It's been that way since early in its life cycle. And it's also family run. So that kind of speaks to the culture. I mean, Mike talked about the culture at Stewart's Draft, which is amazing. The culture at the headquarters is also amazing. I think company-wide, 15% are in the 25-year club, so a highly tenured organization. NIBCO has been in the pipe fittings and valves product category since just about their inception. They popularized the solder metal fitting in indoor plumbing, 1928, and pivoted to starting to develop wrought copper fittings in the 1930s. We got into the valve business during World War II when the government asked us to supply valves for them, which we did. And there's a wonderful story that Mr. Repaid the government for all the profits that were made during World War II. We didn't want to profit from a war. So it was a cost neutral benefit, which kind of speaks to the character and the integrity of the company. And there's just tons of stories about that. We entered into the plastic fitting product category in the 1960s, and then in engineered plastics. And then in the thousands, we also became involved with what I call alternative joinery and metal fittings, which is press to connect and push to connect. And that's also made at Stewart's Draft, Virginia. So that's just kind of a thumbnail, a 30-second elevator speech. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have about the company or its history.
That's awesome. My whole thing is because I do work with certain companies. And like I said, I did go out to get a tour of the facility and all that, which is amazing. Family owned businesses, family run, like you can tell when it's a family owned business because of how they run things, how they care, how they just it's very different. And I've worked with other kinds of companies, and I always really love hearing the story of a family operated business or one that came from that kind of background. And NIBCO is no different. How many plants or facilities do you guys have across the country? Because I know there's actually one here that I haven't even toured.
Yeah, I believe the number is 9 across the United States and 1 in Mexico. And that's another unique thing about NIBCO is that they have really stood by made in the USA. It wasn't, it's been ingrained in our DNA. It doesn't come and go. And Stewart's Draft is a wonderful example of one of those locations. And we have several other that are just excellent as well. We have a plant in Blytheville that services our valve product category, Greensboro, Georgia, that manufactures plastic fittings. And I've been to several of these plants, and they're all amazing.
Do they each have like their own thing that they do? Because I know
Stewart's
Draft is copper fittings, and then there's one here in McAllen. I think it's more for plumbing and valve.
Yep. McAllen McAllen is primarily valves. That is one plant that I haven't been to, so I can't speak to it directly.
Neither have I, and
But
I live here.
yeah, oh, I know. Well, yeah, but they're. I think I can't speak to how long that location has been in the NIBCO family, but quite some time. I think that goes back decades. Most of these locations go back decades. They're measured in decades as opposed to a couple of years. So really amazing U.S. manufacturing footprint.
Yeah, and if Adrian, if I could add maybe a little bit to that too, in addition to the manufacturing facilities, we have 12 distribution sites.
Okay.
So not only do we have the manufacturing, but to someone like yourself, you're probably getting your product from one of our distribution sites.
Yeah, because that was another thing that I heard is like you guys can get these out, or we can get a hold of these relatively quickly if you need a big order or something of that nature. Because everything's here in house. Like you guys are able to send these off or have a distributor that is close by.
Right. Yeah, I can speak for the copper fittings. We keep about 3,100 products in stock, so different products in stock. And then as we get into a little bit more of what Stuart Straff does here in a few minutes, what I like to say is our claim to fame is we can make any one part, right? Any one part in 24 hours. Right?
That's what I remember.
We can't make all 3,100 in 24 hours, but we can make any one part. So if something comes up, there is some big emergency, we don't have it in stock, we can't find it from our distribution network, we can make it here.
And that's what I remember now. Like you guys said, if we don't have it, we can make it. Like that's great. Which is an advantage. Because I know me and a couple other people there were like, you guys don't emphasize maybe the USA made enough. You know how some people brag about it. Like you guys, or you don't emphasize it enough on your end, but that's a big deal because your advantage over some other companies is, they got to wait for it to come in or they got to wait for it to be made somewhere else. And then they ship it out to you or whatever it is. So that was a big one that stood out to me. That Stewart's draft. We can get into that one as well right now. That is the copper fitting. So that is, I'm glad that we got to tour that one because I got to see firsthand how you guys manufacture those. So that is like basically any type of copper fitting is made in that facility there, right?
Yeah, if you're buying a copper fitting from NIBCO, it's coming out of the Stuart Straff facility.
So that's plumbing, HVAC, everything there.
Right.
Do you guys have a quick rundown on the process of how that is made there? You guys have these rods that come in, right? And then you guys, from beginning to end, everything's in that facility.
Yeah, Adrian, we're a vertically integrated manufacturing facility, which does set us apart from some of our competitors. Yeah, we buy raw copper cathode. That was the sheets of copper that you saw.
The
here
sheets where you drop them in, and we had that big fire show that you guys put on for us.
Yeah, we put on. It was a little more of a show. And as a matter of fact, I've got a picture behind me showing that. We took a picture of it as well. That's a little bit of made for show, but it is part of the process that we do. So we drop the copper cathode into one of our furnaces, and then through we basically melt the copper, and then we draw it up through a series of dies and then water jackets to actually cool it into a rod. Okay, so then the output, and you saw the nice golden, the golden arch there of copper, copper rod, and then we take that copper rod and we draw it to get it into the size that we need, and then through a series of processes, mostly what I'll call punch press style processes, we go through a basic series where we form the part. Okay, so you take the rod and you form it into a T or an elbow, or an adapter or a coupling or whatever the product's going to be. So you form it, and then you do kind of a post-forming, a sizing operations where you'll put the cup ends on it, or increase the diameter. You can insert the tube into it in the field. And then we do a final step that we call facing, which think in terms of deburring. And then the last step that we do is we send it through a burnishing operation. And that burnishing operation is what puts the NIBCO shine on it. So if you go into,
those were nice.
That's right. So if you go in or you get a bag of parts, right, you're going to be able to tell that it's a NIBCO. That's kind of the first half of our process, which certainly sets, I'll say, the general overall process for us. That's a very high volume, low mix product line. Okay. We end up making a little over about 100 SKUs. So I said we had 3,100 SKUs. This does about 100 of them. And then we have a different process, very similar but different. Starts off with a furnace, okay? And what we usually use in this furnace, while we use some copper cathode, mostly we use all of the copper that comes out of our processing steps in the plant. So we end up 100% recycling all our copper through this furnace. So again, we collect it all, we melt it, we send it through a downcast process. Again, very similar water jacket, right? But then you cut it into, and you probably remember, Adrian, when you were here, you saw the billets that we cut. It's about a 9-inch long, 6-inch diameter, about 80 pounds, 83 pounds, just a billet. And then we take that billet and we pierce it and we run it through an extruder. That's what makes the tube. And then we draw that tube once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. And you create basically a tube that's got the correct wall thickness, ID and OD, and then we cut it, right? So you run it through a saw process, and then we anneal it to make it soft, and then we go through that same process I described before, where you're taking it and you're running it through a series of punches and presses. Could be a facing operation, could be a bender, and then you basically again create the geometry of the part, and then we can then take it through a lot of post operations where you're doing machining or you're doing tapping. If it's an adapter, right, you need a male or female thread within it through a tapping operation. And then as Marilyn described earlier, if it's a press product, then we're taking it through kind of a ram and cam, creating that bead and that O-ring set for our press products.
So do you guys collect everything, right? The shavings or anything else that comes out, and reusing
everything that comes off. Yep. Even if you vacuum something up off the floor, you sweep something up off the floor, we collect that and send it to our reverberatory furnace.
Hey, copper's not cheap. I mean,
copper's
you gotta collect
it all.
Yes. Yeah, I reuse as much as I can just on a job site. Like I'm using it to, it's nothing. Sure. So I get it, because we walked in there and I could see like the amount of copper that you guys deal with. It's everywhere, and you collect that, recycle it, like you said. That's an amazing thing to see in person. Like I said, I have like clips that I'm going to be showing throughout this episode that I can post. I like to be in the moment and kind of just take it in. It was an amazing thing to watch. Like you said, from beginning to end and everything you guys do. Somebody, I can't remember his name. We were sitting down during the presentation. I think it was before we went out there, and he nudged me like, they filmed, what's that? How it's made here in the facility, right? So you guys have, and I'm going to look for it online because I told him I need to look it up, an episode of this TV show that I loved as a kid. And I've literally brought it up in so many of my podcast episodes because we'll talk about what we liked and what I liked growing up. I was always glued to those shows, or those kinds of shows, because I loved manufacturing. I loved knowing how things work, whether it's like candy, food, electronics, anything. I loved that show. And I'm like, really? That was just a fascinating, fun fact for me, because that's one of my favorite shows. And you guys actually had that filmed there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, very neat.
Yeah, I'm going to look for some footage so I can put that up as well. Really cool. If you guys have that, have them come in. That says a lot too, because you guys have a really good manufacturing plant. Now that one in particular, Stewart's Draft, has been expanded several times, has it not?
Yeah. We, Marilyn talked a little bit about the history with NIBCO. So at the same time, NIBCO in 2024 was celebrating 120 years. The Stewart's Draft facility within NIBCO was celebrating 55. We've now been here 56 years. Started with an acquisition, basically the tube mill. We bought the tube mill and then went through, as you were describing, a series of consolidations within NIBCO and expansion. In the 80s, we added on to the building about 70,000 square feet here. And then in 2000, with the launch of the press product that we were talking about, we added on we call it a different building, but basically it's attached. We call it Building 2. It's attached to the facility. Added on about another 60,000 square feet there. And then in the, I think it was about 2009, we got a building just up the street, Adrian. It's about 2 blocks away. It started out as a distribution facility. But then with the expansion and growth that we've had in our product lines here at the main plant, we needed to do some things differently here. So we actually purchased a distribution center down in Buena Vista, which is about 35 minutes or so from the Stuart Straff plant. And we've now filled up that building that's here locally with additional presses and additional packaging equipment. So yeah, over the 55 years that we've been here, we've seen quite a few building expansions and growth within this facility, which is phenomenal. I keep talking to my boss about what's next. So hopefully there'll be either another expansion, or we can get into a different market, or get great guys like you to continue to buy our products so we can continue to grow.
Yeah, around here, I actually didn't know a whole lot about NIBCO. So I kind of dove into it after talking with you guys and talking with some of the people there. And you guys are in Home Depot. Is it under another name?
Yeah, and metal fittings at Home Depot. I think it's Everbuilt. It's a private label Home Depot program.
Yeah, because they showed us those packaging at the facility. I didn't even know we were using NIBCO, and we were, because we get that stuff from Home Depot. But that's a part of the same company. Remind me, what does NIBCO stand for? I meant to ask that earlier.
Northern Indiana Brass Company. So NIBCO began its life making band musical equipment components out of brass. Elkhart was kind of the place for musical instruments back in the early days. And again, NIBCO was founded, I think, in 1908. But then in the 20s, the first Mr. Martin decided to pivot to manufacturing plumbing products. And instead of being kind of providing a component to somebody, decided to start providing finished goods that people could use in this developing indoor plumbing systems. Yep. So that's kind of, so Northern Indiana Brass Company, right?
Yeah. I don't think any of us knew that when we got there. We're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I kind of, yeah. I mean, it's kind of an Elkhart-centric knowledge base, right? With the history of that location in Northern Indiana and this company being a part of that Elkhart community since its inception.
That's awesome. Speaking of which, there is that press tool and technology that I kind of wanted to integrate here because I do HVAC. So I have tested a couple of press fittings, and that's kind of something that I learned about, like I said, discussing things with NIBCO, everybody there, and kind of.
Sure.
I think when I was first approached, I really thought you guys only did plumbing. I didn't even think about the HVAC side of it. And they're like, no, we have press tools. I was like, oh, really? So when did that come out? Like, how long has the press HVAC or the ACR press been out?
So Press ACR was launched in May of 2020. And it is a press fitting and accessories specifically targeted at the HVACR segment. And that means that's significantly different than a water system in a variety of ways. One is the pressure. We have to hold to 700 PSI and 3 times safety factor, as opposed to press that's used in water applications is about 300 PSI. So much higher pressures.
I don't know if you realize how many people think that is what you're using is the water press. I'm like, it's not the same whatsoever.
No, totally different. Absolutely different. Different product. The crimp is circular, 360-degree crimp. In the water applications, it's usually a hexagonal crimp. And we need that 360 to get that, to make sure there's no places that these little refrigerant molecules can sneak out.
Thank you, because there is one that is hex that I've been telling people wouldn't trust anything but a circular press.
I'm with you. I think that was a great innovation. The other thing we did is we modified the water fitting. So we put grooves on the inside of the fitting, and that helps bite into soft copper, right? It creates more of a bite. And then we have a little bit. Yep,
I'm sorry. I immediately saw that and I'm like, what is this? Because it was very interesting, very different, very unique. And it's just an extra measure to create a bond. Like you said, it's gonna bite down. So there's these grooves on the ends where you put the other piece of pipe in. And when you press, it's pressing that into the copper as well.
Correct. It bites into that copper a little bit more. And then The tool the minimum force of the tool that we use is a little higher than we do in water applications. The tool for water applications is a 15 kilonewton, but for ACR, we go up to 19. A 19 kilonewton wand is a minimum, again, for that extra force to have a more secure joint. So I call it a formula. There are 3 components that differentiate an HVACR fitting from a traditional water application fitting, primarily water. So it's a real neat product. I'm real thrilled, and we make it in Stewart's Draft, and I'm real excited about the future of this product for NIBCO.
Is all that soft or hard copper, the fittings?
It's both. It's both. I think soft copper is used up to a certain size, and then most contractors, and you probably know this better than I do, they flip to hard copper, right? As you get into the larger sizes, maybe
okay.
I think 7/8 or above, they flip to hard copper.
Okay.
So
anything on the smaller scale should be soft, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It's typically soft. Oh yeah.
All right. No, just because like I've been we've been looking at press for years now because me and my dad were interested, and it might have been around that time, 2020. We're kind of like, we were working a lot, but we had time to kind of, just because of the way the world was, to kind of shop around and look at new things. And my dad actually, because he doesn't do HVAC, he does commercial kitchen equipment, but we're kind of like partners in our business. And he was like, "What is that?" He's like, "That looks cool. You should try that." He was very into it. But we were shopping around because we went to different companies or brands to see what they offered and what kind. So I've been particular to, I would prefer it to be, because I only work up to 7/8. I rarely do like an inch and an eighth sometimes, but it's rare. So I've always been on the side of like soft copper, just because that makes more sense for it to be, annealed and everything. Like it's gonna bond better. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that bond. I don't want any callbacks whatsoever. So there was one that did soft copper that I had seen, so we tried that one. There was one that did a hex press. I kind of stayed away from that one. And that one also was hard copper. So I don't understand how that worked. But anyway, you guys do soft copper. Now these fittings, another thing that I had seen besides the grooves is that, like, are these basically your regular fittings just modified to be press fittings?
Yeah, they actually are. I mean, Mike can, feel free to jump in, but it is the same base fitting, but it is modified, again, with the grooves and with a unique O-ring material to be able to be used in these HVACR high PSI applications.
Yeah, Adrian, it's the exact same process that we talked about before. Goes through the exact same equipment. We do obviously have a different equipment that puts the bead on it and puts the O-ring groove, as Marilyn was describing earlier, and then it goes through the process of where we put the O-ring in and package it.
See now, because I've been showing this, on my social medias and stuff like that, because I personally love that, because I've used others, and there's even another brand. So you say that like the grooves are your extra measure, right? You have the O-ring, and then you have the grooves, and then obviously a circular press. There's some people that try to do like double O-rings, and I'm like, those are just too big. They're too long. And then there's another one that does, they're single O-rings, but they're really large fittings. And a lot of times I can't even use them because they just won't fit where I'm trying to put them. So when I saw you-alls and I got those in, I was like, oh, these are like regular couplings. Like there's no extra size to them. And it helps a lot because it goes into basically any area that I've used a coupling to braze. I can use this to press. And typically getting a press tool for me on refrigeration or AC, because I do both, like I haven't had an issue. So we've been using this for quite a while now. So I have no issues with press, and it does save me time. I like, people always question, is it worth the investment? Is it worth, like, does it actually save you time? I can say it does. And it's also just the headache of the process of brazing, the process of checking that, making sure you got it right. And if you're there's just some stubborn areas where you just can't get the flame where you want it. So you're having to do all these tricks to do it. And if you go in there and press it, then you move on to the next thing. That's just my thing. But the fittings is what got me, because like I said, I haven't been able to use some previously because it just didn't fit. And you guys offer the same coupling whether it's braze or press. And I thought that was really cool.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear you, had a great experience with the product. That makes our day, right?
And somebody was like, oh, I prefer the I forgot what you call it, the longer 90 sweep if it's like a longer
Right.
fitting. I was like, I
Long
don't.
term.
I was like, we use regular couplings, or I bend my 90s. I was like, it doesn't affect what I work on. So I mean, everybody's different, but
Right.
personally, I think it's an advantage that it's just a normal coupling size, but it can be press as well. Or you guys make a
Great.
press version.
Glad to hear that. That's great. Great feedback. Appreciate it.
And I'm not sure if you know this on hand, what are the ratings? Because you mentioned the PSI rating is.
Yeah.
What is the PSI rating and the temperature rating?
Yeah. So the PSI rating, I know this by heart, is 700 PSI. I'm just going to peek at my catalog. The temperature rating is a little different, goes from the continuous operating temperature is -40 to 250 degrees. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. No, because yes, there is I don't know if it's a trend right now, but like I have another friend who also presses a lot and does kind of the similar work that I do. And we noticed, because there's this thing, I guess now, I never thought about it, that you can't use these in like walk-in boxes. And then I got wind of it, and I'm like, I use them in walk-in boxes almost strictly because that's where it helps me the most. So it's one thing that people think that they leak because they're like, the water fittings, but they also are concerned with the temperature. And I'm like, well, I mean, for me, I'm a business owner. So if I do this and it fails, I eat the cost. It's my test. Yeah. So I've done this already several times, and I have a bunch of walk-in boxes now that have press in them. I put this in walk-in freezers. I put this in walk-in coolers. I recently put some NIBCO fittings in a couple of walk-in boxes as well. No issues. And that thing runs. And if it ends up leaking, it's not the press fitting. It's usually the coil itself.
Yeah. I appreciate that feedback as well. And we have a video that shows, the fact that the pipe will fail before the fitting joint fails. It is pretty rugged, right?
But people, that was another question that comes up every now and then. That's why I brought it up does it get compromised with any constant temperature change, right? Like if it's -10 and then you go into defrost and it goes up and then it comes back down or anything like that. But I don't think there's anything that gets compromised because I've used it and it works.
We as we developed the product, and you can see in our catalog, we adhere to a fairly long list of ISO standards, and we put it through a pretty rigorous test protocol. Vibration for sure, because in refrigeration you have more vibration than you do in water-based systems, but also temperature change. So NIBCO is really scrupulous about product design, product quality. So I have in the 5+ years that we've launched the product, I have yet to hear about any kind of failure that you're describing, right? So I have a high level of confidence in the product, in its application.
Yeah, I will say with any brand, for the most part, I can't speak because I don't use them all. Typically what I hear is it's a user error, right? If you don't follow directions, you're gonna get a leak. That's first and foremost. And that's another thing that I liked about you all's fitting. I feel like it's very like without compromising size or anything else. You guys have those extra measures. So again, I mentioned the O-ring, the grooves, the circular press, the soft copper. It's also just like your other couplings because it does technically have a stop, right? Because you have that bell on there like you would a normal fitting. But it's kind of hard to mess up on most of these, presses, at least on yours, because other ones you actually can go too far or not far enough.
What we found, what we found is that in refrigeration applications, the tube prep is even more important and sensitive.
Which you should be doing regardless of brazing or pressing.
That's right.
Yes, I totally, absolutely with you. That's the one area where there needs to be a rigorous, attention to detail. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, you need a clean pipe, and everything will go well.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Adrian, if I can throw in maybe just a little fun fact. We do get a lot of visitors that come into the facility, and some of them are our customers, and some of them, we'll take even the local high school here and have visitors come in, and we have never had anyone fail on a press fitting. So we'll do a little demonstration, then we'll have them get hands on. We'll show them how to do it. Have them crimp it. We'll take it over to our lab. We'll do the burst test on it. We have never had anybody fail in doing that.
That's a really good point to make, because other brands, and this goes back to what I was saying, that they're on other brands, because I know you guys have you do have instructions, you do have like a depth gauge and all that, right, for your fittings.
We do. Yep.
So there's other brands that you really need to be careful with the depth and everything, because you can go too far or not far enough, because they have either the O-ring is way inside, or you got double O-rings or something of that nature. And also the way you put the press tool on the fitting is different on certain brands, right?
Yes,
I just feel like when I saw yours, not to sound negative, but it's really dummy proof, because it's very simple. It's just, like I said, like a regular fitting of yours that happens to be press and has that O-ring and all that we mentioned. And that's good to know that nobody has messed up, even high school kids.
That's right.
That was my whole point too, because I was telling people, I was like, this looks like you just can't mess it up.
You nailed it. If you follow the instructions and you've got that attention to detail, it's very, very learnable. Right. And you can get into the knowledge level that you need easily and quickly, which is great. And we kind of keep it simple on purpose, right? And don't overcomplicate things whenever possible. And we lean towards consistency whenever possible, because that helps the installers, right?
That's great. And that kind of answers my question as far as how quickly can a technician use your press tool, and you have high school kids just walking in and doing it.
Right.
And we do a ton of training. Yeah, we do a ton of training, our sales organization, at unions, at contractors. So we make ourselves available to make sure people have the knowledge and the comfort level to press. And we don't just throw them out there and have them figure it out on their own. We're always available for that.
So do you guys do, like you said, trainings? Any kinds of classes or on this kind of stuff?
Yeah. In-person training with the tool and the fittings. Like I said, we'll do it with a contractor. We do it on a job site. We'll do it at union halls. So it's kind of a core, competency within NIBCO that we reach out to the end users, and we engage with contractors and on job sites to make sure that everything goes well. If there's ever an issue, we're there at a drop of a hat. It's the priority to get out there to that situation and get it figured out and fixed. So that's another cultural nuance of NIBCO that I call it the secret sauce, that helps the company and the product be successful.
That's good to hear. As far, since we're on the topic of the ACR press, I can kind of see, like, in my business where we've used it and where it's been helpful. But do you see it be, like you mentioned earlier, that you kind of get into these other markets that you see, fit, as you guys grow as a company. But ACR press in particular, do you see that growing over the next, few years, 5-10 years?
There's a couple. I certainly do. And I'll just cite.
And I just wonder what kind of feedback are you getting about this?
People are very interested in applying this technology to the HVACR market. It's been out there now for over 25 years in the water application, and natural gas in the about 10-15 years ago. So refrigeration is kind of the natural next step for this press to connect technology. The refrigeration market by itself is growing by leaps and bounds. If you just do like secondary research, I mean, it has a very strong growth rate. So this use would grow as the market grows. But the other thing, of course, is, it's a very dynamic market where the refrigerants are changing. There was just the launch of the low GWP refrigerants in 2025. So
that whole mess.
That whole thing. But that change that is opening up people's perspective to trying to just like your company. So people are very open-minded to exploring it. So I think between the growth of the market, the change in the market, there's a great amount of growth potential for press to connect solutions in HVACR. And I think that's going to be the the case for quite some time.
Yep. Now, speaking, from experience, the whole thing with press, like we're always looking to keep up with technology and new trends and all that, because if you don't, you get left behind. You're the only company that doesn't offer this or that, then you're going to get left behind. So, we try to be on top of it, and it is something that you saw trending. Now, I never like to be the first person to do it. I like to see others maybe attempt and may possibly fail. I like to see that first, and then I'll get into it, right? I kept seeing people using it and having success with it. And then when you get these comments or when I get messages that are like, I could braise that quicker, I could do it, like, why?
Okay.
And there is a cost. I will say that, like, there's no way around that. There is a cost, right? It's an investment. It's not something that a technician that's 20 years old should be buying for themselves. This is a company that needs to, have at least one or supply their install team with them, or however they operate. The company needs to supply these, as do we. We have a couple now that we lend out whenever we have installs, and I typically carry one on me. And that's all fine as a technician, but as a business owner, you have all these other things that go through your head. There's the liability, there's the insurance, there's a fire hazard, there's so many other issues that come up where press just makes so much sense, right? You go and spend a few bucks on the press tool. As a business owner, that's not a big hit. And we do hospital work. That's gonna, like, I wish I had this 15 years ago, because I can't tell you the amount of headaches I've had dealing with the people at the hospital. Like, you're not gonna braze, you're not gonna use an open flame here, trying to take a unit outside that is like, the hospital has been remodeled so many times it doesn't even fit out the door anymore. Like, there's so many things that an average technician doesn't think about, but a business owner does. In my experience, I honestly wish I had this from the get-go. It doesn't take away any skills. It just, there's some scenarios that are just like, they could be simplified so much by a press tool that you can trust.
Absolutely. Right. The logistics of the job site, are very challenging, and the space constraints and all that kind of stuff. So that's very real parameters that help encourage the use of press.
And a lot of times we're working around people.
Yeah.
I have famously mentioned this a whole bunch of times. I work in kitchens. I cleared out a whole kitchen and possibly building because I was brazing, and there was a pocket of oil, and you got that phosgene gas, and everybody started coughing, and what is that smell? Like, they're running out the building, and I'm there like, oops, I had my torch in my hand, and you had that big ball of green flame come out. So,
gosh,
yeah, there's some instances where I'm like, man, like, if I only had, because now I would use it even on small equipment, like, if it's going to save me that kind of hassle,
headache,
because that headache, because that was just super embarrassing at that time.
Yeah.
And as far as like what you guys have, we can kind of close on like what you guys expect to, come from this, because I did get a box of your fittings. It does come with like 5s and 90s as far as like press.
Yep.
There's tees, there's caps. You guys are trying to cover as much as you can. Is there anything coming later that you guys maybe are looking at, like any other kinds of either valves or dryers or fittings, like anything else?
Yeah, well, we're definitely looking to expand this line, additional fitting configurations, additional what I call accessories. So we are actively developing, and will continue, I think, to develop additional press ACR product solutions and make it as much, again, we're a fitting and a valve company. So this space is really attractive to us, and we have the ability to, figure these things out. So it's very dynamic. I think I've had, about 3 or 4 launches just in 2025 of additional products, configurations, and that cadence will definitely continue in the near future. I think it's honestly, it could potentially be endless, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in water press. We continue to expand that product line all the time, because as people get into it, and that was one of your questions, we get feedback. Hey, could you do this for us? Hey, can you do that for us? We take that feedback really seriously, and we study it, and when we can respond to it, and I'd say 99% of the time we can, we do. So we will continue to do that. NIBCO is very new product development oriented within ACR and outside of ACR. So the company is very vested in continuing to expand new products, which is great from my perspective.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear, because if I could press any and every component in a refrigeration cycle, I would love that, right? Maybe at some point we'll get there. That'd be awesome. Off the top of my head, I could think of what I see a lot used is like the flare fittings. They like to use those, right, for mini splits, or I like to use them on dryers, because I never got into the filter dryers that had like the extended piping where you could press, because those are like only for pressing, really, and they're hard to find. So what I ended up getting was like the dryers that have the threads on them, that you can flare fitting on them. So then I would press on flare fittings and then put a dryer, and that just helps me for future repairs where I can just unscrew the dryer and change it out. Just makes it much simpler. I won't have to bring a torch at all for any of that. So I typically try, when I had another brand, to carry these flare fittings that were pressed, that could be pressed on, and maybe like some service ports. Those are always needed, I work on small equipment. Sometimes you got to brazen a service port, and now that we deal with R290, that's like it's like a big thing now.
Right.
You're not supposed to leave the ports on, but everybody does, and brazing that is a whole other thing. Like if you could press everything in, and then you still got to bring the torches for that service port, it kind of doesn't make any sense. So.
Well, that's great. Again, great feedback, and it was wonderful that we were able to get acquainted at Stewart's Draft and kind of have this ongoing, dialogue about what makes sense and what would be, useful. And we are eager to get that feedback. I love that kind of feedback.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's other valves and other things that, people would need but that's just like off the top of my head, stuff that I see like used quite a bit.
Sure. That's great.
Anything else, Mike? You guys went into detail on a lot of the, the copper fittings. I was eager to hear about the press fittings, because as soon as I saw them, I was like, I need an explanation as to why they look so different from others. And it's good to hear, because those extra measures make much more sense versus what others have tried to do. I made the switch to the NIBCO press. I've had good luck with it, so I will continue to use it and, trust it and all that kind of stuff. And I can't wait to see what you guys, come up with. Like you said, you guys are very new product driven, and that's always good to hear.
Yep. And we're going to keep working on that, and appreciate your use of our product. Love the feedback, and that just helps us all find better solutions. And that's great. That's a great day. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming on and explaining everything. I had a blast out there at the facility.
Great.
It was something great to see. And like I said, I'll share all the footage that I have. And I appreciate you guys for sitting down and explaining.
Anytime. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adrian.